Up, Nico. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the November 3rd, 2023 episode of Why Am I Like This? This is a transmission coming from a container called Why Am I Like This? Within a container called the Broom Radio, within a container called the Broom, which is in the material realm a Discord server which is open to all, and you can find a link to join this Discord server in the description when I post this episode. And I'll say for now that the Broom is a community of advanced spiritual practitioners from many different lineages, some of which have names within the realm of Earth, and I would say many of them don't have names in current time within the Earth realm, but are being birthed within the Earth realm in current time for the first time, in collaboration with many of our sky ancestors and many of our earth ancestors, to create, I want to say, lineages of anchoring which can help us to realign the earth realm with the cosmos. And if you want to be part of the Broom, then you can join using the link in the description when I post this episode, and we may let you join us. So if this is the first time you're tuning into Why Am I Like This, then welcome to the container. I'll say that this is a container where I channel the soul complex that I know as Red Star Green Cloud, or Levantara, or the heart space of Sekhmet, or the star being I know as Sirius. And the guarantee that I give to any who join this container, either synchronously or asynchronously, is that no contexts will be enmeshed within this container, and that contexts will certainly be disenmeshed, and that if anybody believes that this is not the case on either side of that guarantee, then I'll hold space for it wherever you feel called to bring your protestations to me. And I'm going to start by making a transmission from the soul complex I know as Red Star Green Cloud. And I'll say that I only allow what is for the cosmic time of the Broom. I only allow what is for the cosmic time of Tiamat Gaia. I only allow what is for the cosmic time of our galaxy Nut. I only allow what is for the cosmic time of galaxy of Andromeda, which I know as Mart. And I only allow what is for the cosmos. And I'm bringing through a light language transmission from Sirius C, or Red Star Green Cloud, on the topic of framing. And I'll start now. Mea kapuru panes te nilet kanin store. Dit erukuna nelekana stukutelete. Nia nasatana makotelete stukunaneste. Kip emeles tanamakarana. Kip emeles stukarate. Nia masatuna nalakat. Niemat anne perusha hälepänä. Naana karappa sumankele. Niemat helvestä. Kienefte perusta teemme kodai. Sip eena makadali eertä tuolla makalek. Maan. Sim. Maana. Sim. Maana. Sim. Maana. Niselemästemet oneelekatapasta tatemissetelem satelekanam sonanne. Milet stapanoštare nakastita karene stepanonaraštare matukania. Kanala. Kanala. Nielemastana nakaran salakane. Kaiana. Kaiana. Sim. 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 Suman enat suran nil saten sunilen sanamas kanas kanas sanalem enas done kinelistam storon sanim nienalesta kanam sunele sam sam kaya sakamale una entele kanasha kanan en alek entetemestone doi kana kanem sunele kane kodatam işte dekanestumen Shia, 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 Namasunele, Testakunamani, Krishtanam, Senera, Ka'anala che storata kaste. Shim. Shim. Ni ambstele sona katamanondares tikadipst anelas. Shim. Shim. Namastele namakonale sanale. Sanale. Sana. Shim. Shim. Manalem Salakanamusaram Kim 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 Nala Nala Satete Musonala Takuri Ma Kim Kim Nala Poyare Ta Sim, 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 sim. Nia rapidamano kadele kute kanamotonene ki modo kanele shia suna kanie kaniele kaniele shim 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 I, I, Mm-hmm. Thanks you all for holding space for that transmission on the topic of framing from Sirius C or Levantara or Red Star Green Cloud. I guess before I start, I'm just going to ask if anybody has any questions that they would like me to transmit a response to. And yeah, you can feel free to unmute if you have the broom roll. If you don't have the broom roll, then you probably can't unmute, but please shout out in the broom radio if you would like to be able to speak. The other two questions which I felt called to pick out for today are, one of them's from a member called Fluorescent Spiral. They ask, could you elaborate upon false matrix, which is a term which I used in some conversation. But, you know, I think a lot of people use this term. I definitely want to speak on that. And then the other question that I felt called to pick out is, what is a soul from your point of view, which comes from a member called Lexi and the gardener, and a member named Half Fatum. So yeah, I can go off on those questions if nobody else has any questions. But yeah, I'd say like the main purpose of this container is for me to speak on topics which, you know, I think like questions tend to come up on social media or like in various contexts, or they come up in session, and I end up wanting to speak on them at length. And I end up wanting to speak on them in detail, which is sort of like disproportionate to the context. And often it ends up taking up more time in sessions than I would like to dedicate to just dumping lore on people in sessions, which, you know, I'd prefer to like keep open for like one-to-one energy work instead of things that are appropriate to share one-to-many, so to speak. And then I'd say like sometimes the context in which these questions come up, those contexts are like too narrow, and I want to answer the question in a way which is much vaster, but it requires so much of my energy that it would be imbalanced for me to exert that much energy just to answer that question once in a narrow context for one person. So yeah, what is the soul from my perspective or my point of view? And can I elaborate on false matrix? So two such questions. And since nobody has come up with any other questions yet, in text or in audio or in mimed video, I guess I'll start. And I guess I'm going to start with like what the term matrix means to me. And I feel like, you know, some of the people who are listening live and some people who might tune in later are probably familiar with my deep affection for etymology. And without looking it up in current time, I'll say that when I've looked it up in the past, the term matrix descends from like the atoms or the etymos of yeah, like that kind of chain of like matter and mother. And to me, the way that I would describe a matrix in current time is basically the f- the the field from which we create, like the field from which we bring things from immaterial realms into the material. And I feel like it makes sense for me to talk about what a matrix is before I try to talk about what a false matrix is, or what, the false matrix is, if we want to use the definite article. So I'd say the way it connects to what a soul is from my point of view is that basically I feel like the field that we use to bring the immaterial into the material is a field of souls. And I would say that this field of souls is what I sometimes refer to as a continuous fabric of space and time. And I'm going to say some stuff that I've probably said in a bunch of different contexts before. And I thank you in advance for your patience in listening to me say it again, hopefully slightly differently. But yeah, I would say like in the lineages that I come from, there is a soul that we refer to as the corporeal soul, or I would say that we tune into the corporeal soul from a pearl, which I call Indra Nidra, which translates roughly to the pearl of the resting. And what this refers to for me is that the way that we tune into this corporeal soul is by tuning into a subtle organ which sort of sits like roughly around where people would say the sacral chakra sits, between the spine and the belly button or the navel. And this place is sometimes referred to as Mingman, or the gateway of life. And people who are into I want to say the word is ontogenetic development of bodies will talk about how a body grows from the kidneys outwards. And I feel like this is probably the best place for me to talk about the matrix as a continuous fabric of space and time, which is to say that our bodies, I'm going to say, for anybody who's listening to this to this podcast, our bodies basically start growing from genetic material from a father and genetic material from a mother. And then through cell division and replication, these bodies basically take up more and more space in a continuous fashion. And then this unfolding of the body in space takes place in continuous time, which is, you could say the time of our like Vasta matrix, or the time of Earth for everybody who's listening right now within the field of Earth. And so our bodies end up being this contextualization, or this co-weaving of space and time. And then when we start to be able to move, or like even when we're inside the womb and our mothers are moving around, even then we're still moving continuously in space and continuously in time as we're growing. And you can think of this field that I'm calling like our personal matrix, or the field from which we bring the immaterial into the material, as this hyperdimensional object, which is composed of all of the space that we fill up in all of the times that we fill up space. And all of this, I would say, emanates from the corporeal soul, or the seat of Indra Nidra. And that's just one of the souls that you could almost call it like a capital S soul that exists within our body. And again, I would say that every quanta of beingness which goes into the formation of the geometric structure that I'm going to call space, and every quanta of beingness which goes into the geometric structure of what I call time, I would say that they're all souls, in the sense that they're all particles in the wave particle representation of the sound or the vibration of reality. And then I would say that the compositions of these quantas, these quanta of beingness, are also souls. But you could call them like soul complexes because they are compositions of multiple souls, just like space is, just like time is. And then I would say that the corporeal soul from which our continuous fabric of space and time grows in the material realm also has a soul. And that's what I'm calling like a big S soul. And I hope that this is starting to answer the question of what is a soul from my point of view. Basically, like TLDR, it's like many things. But yeah, like I would say all of this constitutes one soul that I'm calling the corporeal soul, that many of my lineages call a corporeal soul. And then I would say that we also have an etheric soul. And I've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes of Why Am I Like This, but I would call it essentially the space-time that sits in the heart space at the time of birth. And this is usually like what people use to determine the natal astrology of a human being or the natal astrology of a non-human being. And I would say that this context of space and time is the seat of a pearl called Indra Sutra, which is the pearl of the middle sea or the middle dantian. And Indra Sutra translates roughly to the pearl of connection or the pearl of the thread. And I would say that this is the pearl that connects us to the ether. And I would say, I mean, I am saying that that context of space and time is connected possibly to many continuous space fabrics. And I guess the way I'll like put this out is that if you look at any pixel on the screen of your phone or on the screen of your laptop, that pixel during the course of a day may be the color blue because you're looking at a video of the ocean, or it may be the color green because you're looking at a website and that pixel represents one dot in a word which appears in green. Which is, to basically say that like a context of space and time, which again is a context of constructions or complexes of souls, which represent weavings of space and weavings of time and weavings of space and time, or weavings of the weavings of space and time. Like that pixel can be part of constructions of space from outside of our, you could say like gravitational well, which is Earth. So that pixel of space and time can have a position within an image which represents Earth. And it can also have a position within an image represented by the solar system, our solar system. And it can also be a pixel in an image of our galaxy, and so on and so forth. Like and various like cascading, non-cascading, and overlapping fabrics of space and also time. And this is how I explain the connection between our etheric souls, or sometimes people just call them souls. Again, we're using the word soul to represent a complex of soul, or a complex or a composition of quanta of beingness. This is how we can be connected to different stars, right? Because you can imagine that one pixel can have meaning within an image of Sirius, and it can have meaning within an image of Antares, and it can have meaning within an image of Arcturus. Um, and you can imagine that there are some pixels which only have meaning within a picture of Sirius, but not within a picture of Ra or Arcturus. And you can imagine that there are some etheric souls which represent pixels which only have meaning in an image of Earth. And within the framework of what some people call star seeds versus Earth seeds, or I think in a lot of frameworks that involve star seeds, there is no real place for Earth seeds. But I would say that, yeah, people whose etheric souls only have meaning within an image of the space-time fabric of Earth might be referred to as Earth seeds. I would say that people whose etheric souls represent pixels in inverted commas within space-time fabrics of, I'm going to say planets that are parts of star systems which are outside of our solar system tend to be called star seeds. And I think there's probably a lot of people whose etheric souls have meaning within an image or space-time fabric. Certainly within Earth, because we're all incarnate on Earth right now, if you're listening to this, but also within the space-time fabrics or the images of other planets within our solar system. And I'd say like some of them probably identify as star seeds, but I wouldn't call them star seeds within my framework. And then some of them might not identify as star seeds or with the star seed framework at all. But I hope y'all can see how the fact that their etheric soul represents a weaving of space and time, which is meaningful in space-time fabrics other than the space-time fabric of Earth, means that they have sky ancestors, or you could say they have incarnations that are part of the bodies of space-time that their etheric is connected to, which are not necessarily from outside our star system and not necessarily from only inside the continuous space-time fabric of Earth, which kind of makes them like non-star seeds. And I wouldn't call them Earth seeds either. I guess if I had to give them a name, I would call them soul seeds. But yeah, I guess I'll pause there and see if anybody has any questions. I'm like, and then there are also lunar seeds, right? If you want to talk about like lunar as the name of the moon, which has a different space-time fabric from Earth. Say that it's like fairly coalescent with the space-time fabric of Earth. And of course, like there are moons of other planets within our star system and within other star systems. And there are other souls, which are stars of other star systems. But it feels right for me in this context to call these souls soul seeds. I feel like it's kind of debased because it's not like super clean in the sense that it's not universally well positioned or unique. But I feel like I'm being called to embrace that. So going back to, yeah, I think like the question of what is a soul from my point of view. I hope I've answered that like thoroughly enough. And I guess I'll like summarize it by saying that for me, a soul is any quanta of being, which is not to say like, I think that like within like the wave particle model of energy or existence or awareness or perception, there is this notion in which um, souls can only be separate as particles, but when you consider them as part of a wave, they're completely non-separate. And I feel like the way that a soul becomes separated from the overall wave that it's a part of is that it becomes quantized by the bounds of perception within any uh, density of space-time. If you can imagine a wave and then you imagine sort of like drawing a line below and above that wave, then there are going to be parts of the wave which appear above the line, the bottom line, and below the bottom line. And then when they come into appearance below or above those lines, they're going to appear as separate. And I would say that if your perception is bound only to that particular density of space-time, then the awareness that they actually join outside of the realms of that space-time is going to be fairly limited to you from the perspective of your corporeal soul and also from the perspective of your etheric soul. Which is to say that if your etheric soul is like what I've called an earth seed, then it's probably going to be really hard for you not to see quantas of beingness or souls as inherently separate. And I would say that if your etheric soul represents what I've called like a soul seed, then it's going to be very hard for you to see beings or souls as separate to the same extent as earth seeds do. But I would say that the degree of separation between souls that's perceived by a soul seed is going to feel very separate from the perspective of a star seed. And then I would say even within the taxonomy of star seeds, there are going to be different perceptions of separation, right? So if your etheric soul represents a star seed, which is meaningful in a space-time fabric of many, many different stars, then the degree of separation which is perceived by an earth seed is going to be extremely separate, right? Whereas if you're a star seed whose etheric soul is meaningful within the space-time fabric of Earth, and then maybe a planet within our solar system, and then maybe like one star outside of our solar system, let's say Lyra, then the degree of separation with which you perceive beings is going to feel like very separate compared to somebody whose soul has incarnated in, say, like 24 different star systems. And I would say that, like, from the perspective of earth seeds and soul seeds, and then like star seeds who have only incarnated in space-time fabrics, which are confined to a few different stars, which is to say that those space-time fabrics haven't achieved crystallinity with the other stars on the timelines in which they incarnated, then the way that star seeds who have incarnated in the space-time fabrics of many stars and are able to integrate the space-time fabrics of those stars within their vessels, like the way that they perceive separation is going to feel really weird, right? Um, does anybody have any questions about that? I feel like I'm just like trapeze swinging between many different frames of reference right now. So super curious to see if that's making sense to you. I feel like there are many like within the people who are listening now or who will listen, there's probably like a pretty decent range of like earth seeds, lunar seeds, soul seeds, and star seeds. So I'm really interested to like kind of scry or like tune into how this conversation lands for all of y'all. But I do want to get back to like the matrix, false matrix thing. Hmm. Cool. So going back to what I was defining as a matrix, and I'll say again that for me, a matrix is the field from which we bring the immaterial into the material, or you could say the field from which we manifest. I feel like the simplest and most concrete answer for that is our physical body. Like my matrix is my physical body. And I can like substantiate that claim by saying that there are many ideas and thought forms I can traffic in using my upper chakras mostly, right? Like I can read something that Hoda says, and then I can, well, when I say read, I'm saying that my eyes are going to respond to the stimuli of seeing something that Hoda texted, or my ears are going to respond to the stimuli of hearing something that Hoda said. And then that's going to, I'm going to say matriculate, just to be cheeky, because matriculate and the word matrix are very commonly linked. But that's going to matriculate using various like patterns of recognition. It's going to process and co-weave many different experiences, which result in many neural artifacts to help me locate concepts which relate to the things that Hoda texted or said to me. And then I'm going to use still more patterns of recognition to put those concepts into some form of like worldview. And then I'm going to use that worldview to figure out an approximation of what Hoda was trying to communicate to me. And from the moment that that idea or thought form or concept leaves Hoda's matrix, it becomes part of a media that we share. And then the rest of that process, which I described, is happening in my physical body, right? And then likely I'm going to compute that concept within that worldview, and then I'm going to integrate it with other concepts which I have somewhere in my body. And then probably like the most likely thing which is going to happen is I'm going to produce laughter, or I'm going to respond to Hoda. And you could say that in that act, I'm using my physical body to create a material response which goes into the media that we share. And then probably something kind of similar is going to be happening in Hoda's body or in the body of anybody else who is subject to the stimuli that either of us are putting into our shared media. And I feel like that's like one sense in which I can substantiate the statement that a matrix is my body. But if you zoom out a little bit and you include the media in which we're exchanging the stimuli, then you could say that there is a body which includes my body and Hoda's body and Lexi's body and even half-atom's body, and even fluorescent spiral's body. Because, let's say like in this container, I'm not going to name everybody who's in this container now or who's going to listen to this container because I don't have material references for all the people who are going to listen to this container. But I hope y'all can see that we're connected by media, and that media is transmitting stimuli which were created by our bodies, and that all of that constitutes another body, and it constitutes analogously a matrix, right? Does anybody have any like disagreements or any clarifying question? I feel like the next question which is coming up for me, oh, I see someone's typing. I see someone is already putting stimuli into our shared media in the form of Discord's notification that someone is typing. And then I hope they're going to press enter, and then that's going to create stimuli in the shared media, which ends up on my screen, which I can read it. And the question is, so when you say media, do you mean media as it stands in current time? Oh. I mean media as anything which separates bodies. And I feel like there's kind of like a spicy perspective there where like some might say that there are things which separate us which don't feel like media, right? So like you could say that like space separates us, but it doesn't seem as if we can communicate through media. In other words, it means that the thing which is separating us, or the thing which I'm saying is separating us, cannot mediate between our separate bodies. But I would say that like given adequate refinement of our channels and the release of the necessary karma, it would be possible for that media to mediate between our bodies and for us to communicate in that medium. And yeah, I mean, basically like media a la medium, not media like entertainment. But I feel like y'all can see how like entertainment media or social media or like news media is a form of media, right? It is something which separates us. It is something which mediates between our separate bodies. And it is something through which we can communicate. But I would say like for the most part, we most often miscommunicate through media. And very often we discommunicate or are discommunicated through media because of, at some level, the lack of refinement of our channels. And I would say like on one level, the meaning I'm trying to transmit there is that because we're not refined in our channels, we end up putting stuff which is miscommunicative or discommunicative in media. And I would include when I say discommunicative, like when we just like, in quotation marks, ghost people, we're discommunicating them, right? Yeah. Someone's saying, thank you for asking that because I totally misunderstood. Yes, thank you for asking that. Also, thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify. And then, yeah, I guess I'll go back to what I was saying about the distinction between a false matrix and I guess like the concept of a false matrix sort of necessitates the possibility or the existence of a true matrix. So I think it's possibly easiest for me to structure a response about what the nature of a true matrix is by going back to what I was saying about bodies. So I would not say that my body as it is a true matrix, because I would not say that my body as it is truly continuous in space and time. And I guess like the way I've spoken about that before is to talk about how what we call triggers in current time and say in secular psychotherapy refers to when a disharmony in one context of space and time ends up creating a portal towards a similar disharmony in another context of space and time. And whenever that happens, I would say that the connection between those contexts of space and time is stronger than the connection between either of those contexts of space and time and the adjacent context of space and time, right? So to concretize this, I'll say that like if I was to get annoyed because somebody put a disturbing picture in the chat right now, it might remind me of a time when somebody showed me a picture which was disturbing, or a picture which was disturbing in that way. And then in that moment, my awareness would be more drawn towards that previous moment than it would be towards the space that's literally around me, adjacent in space. And then the moment immediately before I saw the picture, and then the moments which have ensued after I've seen that picture, which would be continuous in time. And I would say that the extent to which my awareness is drawn towards that previous moment when I previously saw a disturbing picture, the extent to which my awareness is drawn to that instead of being continuous in space and time in this moment represents a level of discontinuity within my body or within my otherwise continuous space fabric. And I feel like it's possible to extrapolate that distinction between a true matrix and a false matrix to matrices which include other bodies within this space-time density, right? So I would say that like anything which draws my awareness away from, let's say, being in an interaction with somebody else, whether that's something in the media or something that's within my body, represents a discontinuity in the shared space-time between me and that person. And then you can sort of, I'd say, extrapolate this towards or to include more and more bodies, right? And you could include all of the bodies which are currently incarnate on Earth right now. Or you could like zoom it down to, let's say, like the body of my immediate family. Or you could like zoom it up to include the body of all of the bodies that contribute awareness to this community that we call the broom. And I would say that there are probably many, many discontinuities within the bodies that make up the community that we call the broom. And then there are also probably many, many discontinuities in any of the interactions that take place between the bodies which are part of this community that we call the broom. And I would say that all of these discontinuities accumulate to make a falseness, which takes the current time embodiment of the broom further away from what I would call a true matrix. And I feel like you can probably, again, extrapolate what I'm saying about the body of the broom or the body of any shared interaction between bodies to our society. And that would give you an idea of what I mean when I say the false matrix. But again, to concretize it, I guess it would be most instructive to look at all of the things which create discontinuities between bodies within the body of collective human consciousness. Within, my cats are trying very hard to make my awareness discontinuous right now by fighting. But you can look at all of the things which contribute to discontinuities between interactions between bodies within the collective body of human consciousness. Can look at all of the things which contribute to discontinuities between human bodies and the body of Earth as a collective consciousness. And I think like the things which come up are like arguments about politics or catchy song or videos on TikTok or the jobs that we have, which make it very hard for us to be present in space and time with the work itself, as well as present in space and time with the people that we work with or with the objects that we work with. And I feel like, without saying too much more, it's pretty obvious like what constitutes the false matrix versus what would constitute a true matrix. And yeah, I'm going to end the recording. I'm going to hop off. And then when it feels right, I'll post this recording in a thread called Why Am I Like This, November 3rd, 2023. And then I'll post it onto YouTube. And eventually, I feel like I'll end up posting it on the Broom YouTube and podcast. And y'all can ask any questions you have, present any disagreements. I definitely welcome any opportunities to refine if you feel like what I transmitted in this container caused the enmeshment context or did not satisfactorily disenmesh context. But finally, I'd like to thank all of y'all for joining me. I'd like to thank Lexi and Half and Fluorescent Spiral for the question. And I'll say happy Mars night of Venus Day, Sophia time. I hope y'all have blessed Venus days, or whatever day it is when you're listening to this. And peace.